Happy Thursday and welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I am Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Tim Claiborne to the Wolff Den. Tim, how's everything going today?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Doing great. Appreciate you coming on here. Got a lot to talk about, some great events that that you've thrown and that we've been a part of. So tell everybody who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Man, so yeah, my name's Tim Claiborne, as you can see there. What I do is that's never the short, easy answer, but I'm all about connecting people through sports and trying to really use sports to create a positive impact. So what that means is creating a lot of charity events and cause marketing campaigns with athletes, finding kind of fun, creative ways to support sports-related nonprofits and to connect people through sports. Running kind of last year during the pandemic when everybody was shut down and everybody sort of had some extra free time on their hands, I just kind of got this idea to start this networking group that would be specific to the sports industry, and that's Locker Room Community. And we started doing those virtually last year, and it's just really been building. We've really been meeting some awesome people, and it's a great mix of we've got former pro and college players and coaches, a lot of sports entrepreneurs like yourself, of course, people involved in sports related nonprofits, media, podcasters, kind of a little bit of everybody. We've got like some university students who are in sports management classes and looking to get out there and looking to meet some people. And so it's been really cool, and very excited that we're getting back to live events. So looking at doing a series of monthly events here in Phoenix in person, and I've just had really huge interest in that. So I think it's gonna take off great. And of course, that'll start here in Phoenix, but we'll be doing some special events around the country, especially in conjunction with major things like the Super Bowl or spring training or the NCAA tournament, where people are gathering anyways. So
yeah, I can tell you firsthand that the locker room events are very good to attend. High quality people, very diverse as well. You got the athletes and former athletes, and you got finance people and nonprofits and philanthropists, people with great products and solutions and coaches. It's one of the better networking stuff that I've been a part of since for a year going, and it's every other week. Basically on Zoom. You now have the Locker Room Community, which is a website. Did a speed networking event. You brought on some professional athletes or ex-professional athletes to talk about what they're up to. And so a lot of good information, a lot of good networking. But you've worked with athletes for a long time now with the professional athletes helping kids.
Yeah.
So how did that start?
So my background was actually online sports retail. So I was doing a whole lot of licensed gear, selling jerseys and caps and all that type of stuff. And that morphed a little bit into working in the sports gambling online marketing industry with the very early stages where the legal status was a little murkier than it is now, so you had to really be careful. With that. And then I started getting involved in some of the charitable events, helping out with a lot of athletes that have foundations that have some of these really cool events, and just kind of finding ways to kind of add some other elements to it and step up the marketing. And I really loved that. I really enjoyed getting out there and connecting with people. And that's the cool thing about sports. Like when I talk to people and you meet somebody and you have that first conversation and they're like, what do you do? They usually don't ask that with so much enthusiasm. And then when I start mentioning, without getting into a whole lot of detail or trying to oversell or anything, just tell them I'm working in sports and I do this and do that. And everybody gets really excited because everybody loves sports. And they all start telling you their stories about sports. They used to be an athlete, in college, or they're still an amateur athlete, or they coach youth sports, or they start telling you who their favorite teams are, or whatever it is, or how they used to go to games with their dad. And like everybody has that story, and everybody gets really excited about it. And so I just love the potential to be able to have fun and help people at the same time. And so that's really where the events came from, And so at the beginning, it was just kind of collaborating on some other existing events. Like Kurt Warner has an awesome flag football tournament out here in Phoenix, and getting out and just checking out some of the cool stuff. You know, Von Miller does some great events in Denver for his foundation, and just seeing a lot of these things that were going on. And so 2020 started, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go full time into the events thing, you know. And so there was stuff happening, you know, beginning of spring training out here in Scottsdale is a huge time, and obviously we had the little COVID situation, and that kind of threw things off significantly, you know. But
I think you're like, I think you're going to be like me, where it's the timing is going to be right for you because you had all this opportunity to network and grow your business and understand and connect and do some research without the hassle of trying to be in the weeds of doing an event and all the other events that are going on. So I think when you look back, you're going to say that is something that really helped me and put me in good position, you know, the rest of this year moving into 2022 when events are starting to come back. At least that's the way I feel about it. I assume it's probably very similar for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one positive, was being able to spend a lot of time one-on-one with people who would have not been accessible normally because they were just busy and they got stuff going on. So it was like everybody had a lot more free time. I think everybody was kind of in a similar situation where, you know, kind of struggling and kind of trying to figure out what's next. So yeah, it's been awesome getting to know so many great people that I probably would not have just because we would have all been wrapped up in the day-to-day urgency. So, you know, now planning events and looking forward to a lot of things that are coming up, it's awesome when you kind of have that question. You're like, okay, so how do I do this, or who can help me with this, or where do I go with this? And I feel like I've got so many more resources now as far as, you know, quality people that can do things a lot better than I can in those areas that I can just reach out to really quickly. So
I mean, that's one of the biggest keys, is having the people around who can help, who want to help. And I think it makes it easier. You know, you have two things going for you. One, you're helping charities and foundations and organizations, right? It's a charitable endeavor. And the second thing is you have professional athletes involved, and, you know, people generally want to be around professional athletes. We've met a lot of professional athletes over the last year and gotten to know them, had good conversations. Some are better and nicer than others. Some are more agreeable than others, and generous with their time and insight. Part of that, I think, is you need to get some level of trust with them, because they got a lot of people with their hands in the cookie jar, right? And trying to figure out, what is this person's intention? Does he really want to help me, or is he just looking out for himself? Now, you know, you could do both, right? I mean, I could want to help you and get in, and still could mean something for me. That doesn't mean that you're just doing it to use them. So it's tough for the athletes. What have you found in working with the athletes that you might maybe didn't think about before you started working with them?
Well, I mean, there's definitely that element, like you mentioned, of it being a very tight knit group, and then you kind of have to get in there and sort of, you got to know some people and you got to prove yourself a little bit, right? Because, like you said, okay, on the charity side, most of these guys, they want to do something positive. They understand, okay, I have a platform through sports, and I want to use that to be able to help people. I want to be able to, contribute in the community, whatever it is. And so, first of all, a lot of guys don't really know what they want to do, especially, they're younger guys and they're busy with their careers, and they want to do something, but they're not sure. And like you said, yeah, people are getting hit up right and left, do this and do that. And it's funny how everyone seems to think their request is like the only one they're getting, So that's a big part of it. But I mean, I think, when you're a kid, you kind of have there's like this mystique around, athletes and celebrities. Like, you think they're like, well, they're like these just people that are kind of like almost like superhuman, like you can't relate to them at all. So it's like, on the one hand, it's awesome because you do see like certain traits that these guys, you understand how they were able to achieve what they've achieved and get to levels they've had because of certain traits. But at the same time, you also see the vulnerability, and you're just people just like you, who have the same struggles and doubts, and they might be really strong in other areas and not know much of anything at all in other areas. And I think sometimes that's the tough part for athletes, is that they want to pretend they know everything. So like, I'm not saying that they know everything, I wouldn't say, right, but that really high levels of success in one area should then translate to another area, right? So if I'm an elite athlete, then I should also be an elite investor. I should also be an elite businessman, and that should just kind of naturally flow from who I am. And so I think a lot of times it's hard to admit that I need some help, or I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, whatever it is, So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, that these athletes, they are just people like us, but some of them have big egos, and they act in a certain way, and they've gotten that reputation, and they are going to only be in the circles of, who's important that I should be talking to. But there's plenty that aren't like that, and those are a lot of the people that are joining your events, and certainly the Win Again Academy events has a lot of that. I've gotten a lot of my guests through those two networking communities, and they've been great. And some other people, they haven't. Not everyone's going to want to work with you or talk to you. And even in these networking, they're going to be popular, right? We go on 30, 40 people in a show, and you have an athlete come on, probably 20 of them are going to want to hit them up and talk to them and try and work with them or get some information. But it's been very positive from my point of view, being in it. What's the hardest thing that you've encountered trying to put these events together, the networking events?
I would say, the goal was to create a group where everyone had enough in common that we would just kind of get in there, and there'd be that quick rapport, and like I said, that connection that we have through sports. Because if you've done networking before, it can be kind of random. It can be sort of hit and miss. You can wind up in a room with people that you just don't really have much in common with, or you can just walk in and there's like one person that's just amazing, and you guys hit it off, and there's all these connections. So it was kind of like creating a group where people have enough in common that we get that connection, but also are diverse enough that we all got something different to offer. Like I said, if you don't want to have everybody's got the same exact background or is in the same industry. And so I think that's been the challenge trying to scale it, is that maybe they need to actually have some more niche offerings like that. So we still have our general group where everybody gets together, but then we're also going to have some events and some opportunities for people that are a little more focused, right?
Let's talk about the in-person events, because they're hoping to come back, and that's kind of where you were headed beforehand. Obviously, golf is a big event that everyone loves to play, regardless of which sport you're supporting or what type of charity or foundation. Are there other types of events that you're looking to do and put together outside of golf? What are some of those?
Yeah, I mean, the golf events have been great, just because it's like one of the few things people have still been able to kind of do during the pandemic, because it's outdoors and you can kind of spread out, and it works that way, but it's limited in its reach just because a lot of people aren't really into golf, So some of the things that I've been involved in on a couple of levels that I'm looking to expand and we're looking at building some partnerships with, is having some more esports events with athletes. And so had a conversation with a university esports program they got great facilities, and here in Phoenix area, and doing a big event probably during spring training when all the baseball players are in town. So that's one thing. I think the flag football concept is awesome. I love Kurt Warner's event. There's other ways to go with that. And right now, this next January, we're actually should have the date actually in the next week or so, but this is going to be here in Arizona as well. It's going to be at the San Diego Padres and Seattle Mariners spring training stadium where they play their games. And we're going to have a celebrity softball game, as well as just sort of a baseball fan fest with a lot of players, current and former players, and baseball vendors and all types of stuff that kind of gives fans an opportunity to reconnect to the players, because that's really what's been missing with the pandemic. Is for a while nobody could go to the games, And then you can go to the games, but you can't get anywhere near the players. You can't have any of that interaction that people normally have. So I think that's really missing. So just kind of opportunity to kind of just promote and celebrate the game and just kind of, rebuild that connection between fans and players, and create some of those experiences that you might not get when you're at a game.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a Gator basketball event for more than 2 years now, and it keeps getting pushed back. We're going to push it to next year again, just because it's not the right time for it. But something like that is great. Celebrity softball, there's a lot of that going on. I know some big names have some celebrity. I think J.J. Watt had one that he used to do. And obviously, anytime you talk about the All-Star game, they play like celebrity softball is a big thing. So that should be fun. Is it going to be all athletes? Is it going to be other celebrities and public figures? Do you have lineup?
It'll be heavy on the athlete side, but not exclusively. So. Mm-hmm.
And you're aligned a lot, with baseball. That's a big passion of yours, obviously. How do you decide which sport and access of athletes for you to interact with and kind of reach out to and engage with?
Well, I think for me, it's just kind of it's kind of mostly been baseball and NFL, and it hasn't necessarily been by design. I mean, those are sports I'm probably better connected and just more of a fan of and understand better than some of the other sports. But I mean, I love working with everybody, but I think the baseball is so huge here in Arizona. I mean, Phoenix is kind of like the unofficial baseball capital of the country, just between spring training being here and there's so many players and coaches who live here year round just because of the training facilities and, the weather and stuff like that. So
have you run into Mike Wilbon yet?
No, I have not.
He's out. He's out. Tony's always bashing on him for having a place in Chicago and another place in Arizona. My friends live in Chandler. Arizona it's a great place. His kids play Little League, and they're pretty involved in playing All-Stars and travel, and so it's year round too, right? Florida, Arizona, it's all year round. You play year round, never stops. Weather's great to go out and play baseball or a softball game or golf, for your events. Although it does get a little hot there sometimes, but maybe take the Valley Ho over in Scottsdale. You could take. They got some great pool parties. You could do an event and then get in the pool at the Valley Ho afterwards. That would be a good idea for you guys.
Oh yeah, there's actually golf tournament coming up here in about 2.5 weeks. So it's actually on the 28th, and it's going to be supporting the Phoenix Children's Hospital. And the golf tournament's on the 29th, but on the 28th there's going to be a pool party. It's going to be celebrating Jay Schrader's 60th birthday. Jay, of course, was the former quarterback for the Raiders and Redskins and a couple of other teams. But there's going to be a number of NFL alumni involved in that. And like I said, it's going to support Phoenix Children's. And guys golf year round out here. I know it's hot, but everybody just they get out there and have a good time anyways. So
was Schrader ASU, a Sun Devil?
He was actually UCLA.
UCLA. I knew he was on the West Coast somewhere.
Yeah, and he had pretty interesting. I mean, he was a baseball player too. He was actually like a first-round pick with Toronto coming out of high school, and then played a few years of minor league ball, and just decided to play football instead.
Yeah, like Drew Henson. I mean, a lot of good baseball players and football players. Few have been able to play both. Obviously, Dion and Bo come to mind. But yeah, you gotta choose, and a lot of people. It just depends. I guess if you're a quarterback, NFL is probably the right one to do, as we saw with Russell Wilson and who was the other one who just got drafted?
Kyler Murray. He's
Murray. Yeah, right. He's an Arizona boy. So if you're a quarterback, you probably do it. But baseball is a lot of people will pick baseball like Drew Henson did because there's just more money in it and maybe a better shot to. If you're good, a better shot to move up in the ranks. So speaking of ex-players and some of the networking that you've done, you've gotten to know Marshall Faulk and gotten involved with Marshall, and you two are in a venture called Virtuity. Am I saying it right?
That's right. Yeah, I know. It took me a little while to learn how to say it too. But yeah.
Tell everybody what gratuity is.
So Virtuity, I got to know Marshall through Dave Meltzer, who's guys I'm just been a huge fan of and been very influential. And Virtuity is, it's something that like that Marshall is like super passionate about, basically based on his background, because he grew up in New Orleans, about as poor as you can grow up, and in these neighborhoods, where there is an opportunity and there's not a lot of educational resources, and the people that are just kind of stuck in just this cycle of just of poverty, right? And so you think, okay, well, Marshall, he's got this big time NFL career, but he's really passionate about helping people that aren't necessarily NFL Hall of Famers, right? So I think that was, he didn't forget where he's come from. So and Marshall was also studying business and finance and in school, and so Virtuity is about financial education. That's really the core of it, right? It's really about, and it's about helping a lot of people who get overlooked by a lot of the bigger companies, right? So Marshall talks about having this experience where after he got drafted, he gets this $5 million bonus check, and he literally didn't know, like, what do I do with the check? Like, he called his agent and he was pissed off. He's like, where's my money? Like, what do I do with this thing? Like, that was the level of, just not really understanding how things work that he came from. And so he goes to one of the major brokerage firms, and he wanted to invest his money. And, they wanted to charge him something like 10 grand just to even talk to him, just to even create a plan. And of course, you've got to have a minimum amount of assets, or they don't want to talk to you either, right?
Yeah.
So this company is really about, reaching people, like I said, probably more like middle class and even below middle class who haven't had exposure to all of the opportunities and all of the financial education and investments and things like that, and just giving people a base so they understand how their money works, and they start to get some plan and some dreams and some goals for what can I do, where am I at, where do I want to be, things like that. And so there's opportunities for people to come in as entrepreneurs, or just to come in and just learn about their money, and they want to take it a step further, and they want to invest, they want to set their family up. That's great. If not, honestly, just coming in and getting that education and just understanding a little bit more than they did is huge too. So that's really kind of the mission there, is just to really be able to empower people through financial education and financial empowerment. And it's been awesome getting to know Marshall. And that's what I was talking about, when some of these guys at these Hall of Fame, they're not just Hall of Fame players because of their random skill. Like there's really something going on, that just the way he approaches life, the way he approaches business, the way he thinks on a different level. That's just, it's awesome and kind of inspiring, and it challenges me as well, So.
Yeah, this isn't his venture. It's just something that he's a part of, and then you were brought along, or did you bring this to his attention?
Oh, no. I came in with Marshall had been doing this he's been doing this for a couple of years. It's not something that he founded, but it's something that, he's very big part of, very, very passionate about. And I came in with him to be a part of what he's doing. So.
Yeah. And they can find more information where?
People could reach out to me directly, would be probably the best way to do that if they want to learn some more about it. So.
Okay, great. We got your LinkedIn down at the bottom, very active on LinkedIn, and we encourage everyone to take a look, connect with Tim, definitely get in touch with the locker room community. It's been great. Do we have one tomorrow, or is it the following Friday? I can't remember.
I'm not going to do one tomorrow. The schedule has been a little up in the air, because now that events are coming back, I've got a little more travel happening and working on some live events. So there may not be as much consistency to it as there was for a while, but we're definitely gonna have them back on there. I want to do another one of the speed networking events again, and kind of see how that goes. So.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I've been doing that I did a couple of my own speed networking events last year, and I think they're great. The randomness, it's interesting, because if we're all sports related and we're all in the locker room community, I think it's easy to have a good conversation. But I've been at some other events where there's no real rhyme or reason for who's there. It's just general, and always had great conversations through that. And even other types of, if I was at a music conference with all different types of people in the music, it's just, there's always people can find common ground and to have a connection, at least a few minutes, figure out, hey, maybe you can help me, maybe I can help you, maybe we can help each other. I think, the networking has been great over the last year. As you and I mentioned, people were a lot more receptive to having those conversations and being a part of it. We'll see what happens now as people start to travel more and get busier and have less time for all of that. I'm always up for it, but it'll be interesting to see how we move forward with the events coming back. Arizona's been kind of, doing their thing for a long time now. It's my friend, I know he's been not a lot of masks going on, so they've been pretty good for longer and open for most people. What kind of events are you going to be interacting with in the near future, going to or working with?
As far as here in Arizona, like I said, just getting the in-person the in-person networking events is going to be great. Getting probably some more charity events going, like you said, on the Top Golf side. Looking at doing a comedy club fundraiser as well, where we'd have a headliner, and then we'd actually have, that's probably going to be spring training. So we're going to actually have some baseball players that'll get up there and take a little shot at and do a little set, and we'll sort of have a contest for, name the funniest player in baseball or something like that, So we are pretty open here, not as open as like probably Texas and Florida. Like people come here from Texas a while back and they're like, you guys are like really restrictive. And I was like, not really. I mean, it's the opposite. People come from California are like, whoa, it's amazing how much you can do here. So I guess it's just all what you're used to. But I think at this point, everybody's pretty open up at this point. So that's the cool thing, moving forward, there's a lot more options. It probably won't happen this season just because we're still kind of phasing out some of the COVID restrictions. But one thing that's going to be launching next year that I'm been talking to some of the franchise, some of the teams about, as well as some former players, is creating some charity events that would be kind of like a sort of premium experience at a game, where you'd go to a Diamondbacks game or you'd go to a Suns game, and you get an opportunity to, you sit in the suite and you'd have former players in there that would come in and watch the game with you and interact. And like, let's say it was a baseball game, maybe we get them down to the field for batting practice and stuff like that. So it'd be about, promoting some causes that the players are passionate about, but then also, like I said, just creating these really, memorable experiences that you're not going to get by just buying a ticket and going out to the game. So
I've had some pretty cool experiences in suites at I was at the Dolphins game in a suite, and Kiefer Sutherland was there, and then I was at the Jay-Z Beyonce concert in a suite, and Alonzo Mourning and his wife are dancing right in front of me. So it's fun to see people out of their element and kind of just enjoying. You want to talk to them just to have conversation, not like asking fanboy type questions, just to have regular conversation. But you got to toe the line between interrupting them during the middle of an event, while they're enjoying it. And it's kind of a delicate balance, even for them too, because they understand, look, I'm a public figure, I'm well known. Part of that is what gave me the opportunity to even be here and have this lifestyle. But they also, need to have their privacy respected. So I think
that's what this is about. Is the athletes that participate in this, that's why they're there. They're going to be there to interact with the fans and to have a good time. So it's not like, you're bothering. You're, like you said, I know there's that line where you want to go say hi to people, but you also don't want to harass them because they're people just like you trying to enjoy themselves. So.
Yeah, I get it. It's it'll be interesting to who do you talk to for there? Is it a team? It's got to be the team and the player. I mean, how is that something they might already do? How do you get involved with that?
Well, as far as creating the relationships with the teams, be able to rent out some of the premium seating areas or the facilities. It's a little separate from lining up some of the players, but not necessarily, because a lot of times, they've got relationships with the alumni. And if you're supporting local charities and local causes and doing some things that's going to kind of make sense for everybody to get aligned with, I think that's really where we're trying to go with that, So.
It's yeah, I've seen some stuff with that for baseball. There's some organizations up in the New York area who have events at Yankee games and bring some Yankee greats. I think it's good for a lot of reasons. It's good to get the players back involved with their former teams. I know even just trying to work on the Gator games, it seems like there's a disconnect a lot of times between the former athletes and the teams and their universities. And I'm sure it's somewhat of a mix between both, the athletes not, them moving on and not doing, or maybe they had an incident, or maybe the teams don't have them feel as welcome. So I think stuff like, the type of events that you're doing and these networking events and charity events, it really gives people a chance to, see other people that they don't get to normally see. And especially when the schedules get busy and families and all of that, there's usually great camaraderie between the players. Even if they were, mortal enemies on the field, you come together for a good cause. What are some of the causes that you like to champion for, if you're talking about some of these charitable events?
Well, to me, I really love anything that we're able to support kids. That's kind of the area that's really, to me, the most interesting. Everybody kind of has their own causes, and that's great. Some people like to support homeless initiatives, or they like to support, veterans causes, or they like to, support environmental or whatever it is. And that's great. Everybody's got their own thing. And so I think, for me, that's kind of the focus is doing things with kids. There's a really cool local organization out here called Giving Soul, which was started by a young boy named Gavin. And essentially, he was inspired by just kind of a random encounter that he had with LeBron James at a Suns game. And the family they were given some nice courtside seats down there, and this was kind of when there was some controversy about LeBron speaking out, and a lot of people were upset about him. He had to just shut up and dribble and all this type of stuff. And so Gavin went to the game, and he just basically made a sign and said something like, you're more than an athlete, and never shut up, and all this. And he caught LeBron's attention, and LeBron gave him a couple of things. I don't remember what it was, but he gave him a couple of things after the game, right? And he got some media attention from this. He was doing interviews, and he was on Sports Center, and the local media was all over it. And he talked to his family, and he wanted to use this as an opportunity, his kind of, his 15 minutes of fame as an opportunity to do something positive. And they had previously taken in foster children into their family, and so that was an issue that was really meaningful to them. And so they started this organization because he loves sports, he loves basketball, and that's kind of where the shoes tie-in came in. Is they provide brand new shoes to kids in foster care. Really, really nice stuff that they're not normally going to get. A lot of these kids are kind of running around with just whatever it is people give them, and as well as they just give them, they give them some little gifts and just really some personalized encouragement more than anything else. And so it's been an awesome project here in Arizona, and there's been a lot of players that I've noticed. Trevor Story has been involved. Liam Hendricks has supported it through some events that I was able to help out with pre-COVID. And there's been a number of players that have been involved and stepped up with it, and it's pretty cool, just the sports tie-in. The Basket of Hope program is another one that I've been involved in the past years, and hopefully we're going to be doing some big events with that. That's the next two Super Bowls, being one in LA, and the next one is in Phoenix. Once again, a lot of complications with COVID, because you're talking about going into hospitals, which you got a lot of people who very high risk and already have health conditions and things like that. So some of that's a little up in the air, but normally how that works is the Super Baskets of Hope event happens Super Bowl week. and players, coaches, cheerleaders, mascots from the teams, but active players, retired players, some people that are associated with the teams that are participating, come out and visit kids in area hospitals. They get gift baskets for the families and for the kids, and they just spend time with them and encourage them and put together kind of a little party for the kids, because obviously they don't get to get out and enjoy all the things that are going on in the city that week. And it involves a lot of local volunteers being able to come together and make an impact. And it's just a really cool experience. I mean, you get a lot of really prominent players that come out, and you just see the impact, being able to go inside the hospital, see the impact on these kids and on the families, and have hospital staff like blown away. They're like, that kid's been here for 2 months and I've never seen him smile until today, and stuff like that. And it's an awesome experience, and a lot of ways that people get involved. And I'm just hoping that it's a little pending, just because hopefully things will be opening up and we'll be able to get in there and give the kids and the families the full experience, here in LA and San Diego hospitals for the next Super Bowl, and then Phoenix for the 2023. So.
Yeah, that's Super Baskets of Hope. Is that the name?
Right.
Was that Malcolm Jenkins?
I don't believe that Malcolm Jenkins has been involved. Tony Dungy is a big part of it. He's the national spokesman. Mike Furry, who's a former NFL player and is a coach for the Bears now, is the president. And a lot of guys from Kurt Warner to Sean Payton to D'Angelo Hall have been a big part of it in the past. And I mean, there's dozens of players and coaches that have participated, and some of them have been involved for quite a long time. But it's not necessarily just NFL, but the NFL, those NFL tie-ins are strong, and it is an NFL sanctioned charity. So like when the Super Bowl events happen, you'll get a lot of participation from the NFLPA and from guys that are in town and everything like that. So.
Yeah, it's great. There is I saw a video the other day. I think it was on Twitter. Maybe it was Rex Chapman sharing that these kids bought their gym coach a new pair of Jordans, because I guess his were, he barely has any money, and his were all ragged. A lot of great stories with people, giving to others in need, and you nailed it. There's so many causes, like underprivileged children and people. There's obviously disease and cancer, homelessness, all of that. They're all worthy causes, but you just, there's so much time and energy and money that you can give. So it's great to have a lot of people who can come together and say, all right, well, maybe these people will work on this and those people will work on something else. It's so the more events you do, the more people you connect with, I think you'll find more causes that they're passionate about, right? Because it's great that you have something that you want to help, but some players have other things in mind that they want to help, and so that might be what you need to do to include them. And obviously you're going to want to do that to help increase visibility and leverage their platform.
Yeah, no, and that's what's awesome is, for people to be able to find something that really does resonate with them and really reflects who they are. Because it's funny when you can tell the difference between somebody who's out there because they really believe in it and they're really passionate about it and it's really meaningful to them, and then somebody who's out there because I'm not saying they have bad intentions, but it's not something that necessarily they connect with. They're kind of their agent told them, this is a good thing, you should go do it, or they're trying to rehab their image because they got in trouble last off season or whatever it is. And so it's a positive thing and they're doing it, but it's not as meaningful to them as it is to some of the other people. So
yeah,
you see the difference.
It's still all good, just but I agree with you. You can tell, and that's not just athletes. It's just a lot of people, and people are waiting for it to end, and again looking over their shoulder to see if there's someone more important they should be talking to. And then you see someone like Tebow, who genuinely loves spending time with the kids that he helps support with his foundation, and the kids in wherever he is, the third world countries. It's
right.
You can't fake that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, and I don't know if you were on the one when we had Greg Vaughn, who's a former MLB All-Star. Greg, he's been running his foundation forever, and when you see guys who are still keeping it going strong long after they're retired, it's really impressive. But I mean, Greg was telling his story, and Greg was talking about why he does what he does with the kids, and talking about his own family experience, and this is big, tough guy, and he was like literally in tears, like he kind of had to like stop himself in the middle, and you could just tell how much he really cares about these issues, and it was I know a lot of people were really impacted by that were on the call, so.
Yeah. Reminds me of this Something About Mary, when Matt Dillon is trying to pretend that he's volunteering with the kids. It was pretty funny scene. I think I caught a bit of the Greg Vaughn event. It's it's tough, just so many events. Like even just before this, there were the two calls that I wanted to be on both of them, and I actually had one on my computer and one on my phone. That's the good and the bad of the pandemic and virtual stuff. You can kind of maybe do half and half, but I also enjoy the in-person type things, whether it's a sporting event or a conference, because I really give all my attention to it. Like when I'm away at a conference, I'll check my email, but I have no calls really set up, no networking stuff, no webinars that I'm watching. So it's that's looking forward to getting back in person. Do you have events that you are looking forward to this summer personally that you're going to? I know I've seen you at a bunch of baseball games, and the past pictures.
Oh yeah, always out at events, but I'm actually going to be when I was telling you about trying to put together some of those premium experiences in the suites with the players and all that, I'm actually going out to Atlanta next week. Dale Murphy does something like that, so I'm going to go out and check out what he does and hang out with him a little bit and kind of learn what they've got going. I've got a nice little system there, so I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully getting out to MLB All-Stars this year. But my son's not quite sure about that. But yeah, there's a lot of charity events and stuff coming up, and that's what I'm definitely excited about, is just getting back out there and meeting people again face to face. Because like you said, the virtual is cool, and it certainly has its value, especially like right now. I mean, you're in Florida, I'm in Arizona. We wouldn't be sitting down and talking right now without this. But I think people are definitely wanting to get back to face to face, and the real interaction that's just different than through a computer screen. So.
Yeah, how did you get connected with Dale? I think I might even be connected with him on LinkedIn, but seems like he's doing some good stuff.
Yeah, he really is, and it was just kind of coincidentally, I was been kind of exploring this idea and talking to some players about this idea, and then I saw that he does something really, really similar. That he does it a few times a year out there in Atlanta, and apparently he's been doing it for a while, and they've kind of got a whole system, and he's got his restaurant out there next to the stadium down in the Battery area, and I was like, I got to get out there, especially because I mean, like my background in baseball, it's kind of interesting. Like I didn't have an older brother. My dad is not interested in sports at all, but my grandfather, huge baseball fan, and his favorite player was Dale Murphy. So like back in the 80s, I mean, that was the guy. Like it was like Dale Murphy. That was probably the first player that I really remember being a fan of as a kid, just because of my grandfather. And I've always just admired him as a person, and kind of had a chance to talk to him a little bit last year. And I just like, man, I got to get out there and check this out. Like the timing was just kind of perfect.
Back then it was, the hitters were Boggs and Gwynn, and then Murphy was right there. It was one of the best. It's I haven't been to the new Atlanta stadium yet, but I hear it's nice.
It is. It is funny. I was there during the Super Bowl in Atlanta, so I didn't go. I went in they had a charity celebrity flag football game, so I went for that, and I got to walk around and check out the stadium, but it wasn't actually for a baseball game, so it'll be a different experience, seeing a game there. But it's a great stadium, and it's a really cool it's a really cool setup. It's basically built. There's this entire, kind of shopping center, entertainment district built all around it. The hotel's right there. You just walk right in, but it's a really cool setup. And I think a lot of the stadiums are getting more like that. They're more kind of, the old days, the stadium was just something kind of way on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a huge parking lot. And now a lot of them are more kind of in these entertainment districts, or they're downtown, and there's more stuff going on around them than there used to be. So
yeah, it's a little bit up the highway, but I hear real good things about the stadium, and I've been to about, I don't even know, I'd have to go back and check, 26, maybe 27 of major league stadiums. Some old, so I've been to all, 4 of the, in my lifetime, Yankee Stadium and Old Yankee Stadium, and then Shea and City. So I've been to, watch the Marlins at Dolphin Stadium, and now at Marlins Park, or I think it's Lone Depot Park. I forget what they call it. How many have you been to? And is there one? I'm actually going to be at Chavez Ravine in September, so I'm going to cross that off the list. How many have you been to, and what is one that you haven't that you'd love to get to?
I don't know the exact number. I still haven't been to the one in San Francisco.
Right.
Almost went a couple of times and just kind of had to change plans, but that's definitely one. Once again, I don't even know what it's called now because they changed the corporate sponsors every year.
I thought it was AT&T, but it might not be.
Yeah, but that's definitely one I would love to get to.
Yeah, we got to, I growing up in New Jersey. We went to a lot of Mets games because that was easier to get to. We actually went to a lot of Phillies games. That was even easier to get to than Shea. We didn't get into the Bronx that much, but it's, back in the day when I was going, the neighborhoods weren't great, and it was just a further drive, and parking was a mess. We had from New Jersey, but it's, to me, there's, we do a sports trip where we go to Major League Baseball, college football, and pro football, and Russ says it's Oracle Park now, so it's.
Oh, that's right.
I think it was AT&T, if I remember correctly. But Russ is a big sports guy, big ticket collector. We just had an article about it. He's part of a group called Booger Stubbs, but I think Russ has got a website where he's selling a ton of old tickets that he has, and you should check it out. It's just a really cool website about the history of ticketing. I think baseball is his main sport. And yeah, check it out. Reach out to Russ. Russ, put your website in the comments for the people who are watching. But as I was saying, we go to all these games. So I go to a lot of baseball, a lot of college football, a lot of pro football. And for me, the baseball game is just probably the best experience, I think, out of all of those. It was, football is great. You tailgate the game. But you don't, like baseball, we walk around. We could walk around and watch the game from a number of different angles and just kind of hang out, have a beer out in center field, go do whatever it is that they're doing, which you don't really, you don't do that in football.
I think it's a little more laid back and social. I mean, try having a conversation at an NFL game when there's, 70,000 people screaming nonstop the whole time. I mean, I love those games too, but I know what you mean. Like as far as just, if you just kind of want to go and just sort of hang out and have an experience, like you said, guys, just take in the whole experience of the stadium and everything like that. And when we were talking about the new stadiums, one I actually went to a couple of months ago, which was an interesting experience, was the one down in Texas that they just opened, the Globe Life, and that was super weird because they still have the old stadium; they didn't get rid of it, right. And it's literally right next door. And when we first got there, we actually pulled up to the old one thinking I was like, where is everybody? What's going on? Like, how do you get in here? Because the old one's still in pretty decent shape. It just didn't have a roof. And it's, like I said, it's literally right next door to it. They still use it. I guess they do some other events there, but it was just a strange situation. And that stadium, I liked it. It didn't have any I didn't say it didn't have any real impressive or unique features like a lot of the newer stadiums do, but, where they really, really stood out was in a lot of these really cool, unique seating areas, where you're down there and you're like, it's almost like you're standing at a cocktail table, like almost literally in the dugout. I mean, they have all these really, really cool. So they went much further with that than I think a lot of people have, and that's got to be more of the future when you see these newer stadiums where there's going to be, on the higher end as far as some of the premium seating and stuff like that.
Have you ever watched baseball from the pool?
Yeah, one time.
What was that like?
Well, you can't really actually see anything if you're in the pool, so you have to kind of get out. I mean, there's they have the pool and the hot tub thing back there, and then there's towards the front by the fence is where you kind of got to actually be if you want to watch. So there's a whole area there. But
it's kind of fun. I'd love to try it someday. The Marlins, they have like a club in the outfield by the bullpen that you can kind of watch. You have to sit in the first 2 rows or so to actually see it, but it's very social, and it's one of the good things. I go to Marlins Park and I go, you go look at the bobblehead museum that they have there, and then you could, there's generally some music going around. There's a beer in the outfield, some interesting food things that you can go to. They have a virtual reality batting cage. You can play a home run contest, and you don't feel like you're missing too much if you go in between an inning or you miss a half inning. Again, you don't get that at the football. And I'm a football game. I never want to leave because you don't want to miss all anything that happens. So, you go to the bathroom, get a drink, maybe something to eat at halftime. I do miss tailgating for baseball. There's no tailgating at the Marlins. We used to tailgate at the old one. We love tailgating. But I do like indoor baseball. I'm a fan of it. What do you think about it?
It was weird at first getting used to it because it just didn't feel, but yeah, it's great. You don't have to worry about if it's raining or out here it's more about the heat. But it's the indoor games. Some of the indoor stadiums are a little dark though, which is kind of I don't know. It doesn't have the same feel to it. But
right, Brent,
indoor football, of course, is extremely loud. So that's the one thing there. Especially like if you wind up sitting up near the top of the stadium. I mean, it's just a little. It's kind of a strange thing, the indoor football, to me.
Yeah, Brent's a good friend and good supporter of the program. Can you imagine? And he loves sports. Can you imagine not liking sports and not liking tailgating? What does that say about this person?
What I'm blown away by, going to a lot of college football games and stuff is how many people will show up and tailgate, and they'll never even actually go into the game. They're just there to tailgate. They just hang out in the parking lot the whole time.
We have friends. I got a couple of different tailgating crews in Gainesville, and one of the crews they start at 7:30 in the morning, and it doesn't matter what time the game is. The game could be noon, 3:30, or 7. They're starting at 7 a.m. We got another crew that they have kids now and a little less flexibility. They show up, a couple hours before the game, and they never make it into the game on time. They're tailgating. They come in. And, second quarter, I'm like, what are you doing? Go get there earlier, tailgate, do what you got to do, come in the stadium, watch the game, and go back out and tailgate. But, yeah, tailgating is a huge thing. I would almost do, you could watch the games there now. I would almost do it where I go to a game, tailgate, and you can get a ticket, great. If not, watch, but that's more not for like that's more if you're in your area, right? Not if you're traveling to go see something. You're going to want to go in the game. So,
right.
Depends. It's usually not that hard to find tickets to a Dolphins game down here if you
right.
want, or Miami or South Florida or FAU.
And of course, back in the day, you could hang out and just go in, but now everything's so much stricter with the entrance policy. I remember being a kid in San Diego, and it's like once it hit. In baseball, once it hit, I think the bottom of the 7th inning, and in the Charger games, once it hit the 4th quarter, they just rolled up the gates, and you could just walk in because people were starting to leave at that point. They didn't have all the strict security scanning and everything that they have now, and no re-entry and all that kind of stuff. So if you
used to be able to go in and out, right?
You had no ticket, you could just run in and watch the 4th quarter, watch the last couple innings, and nobody was really going to say anything or even care,
But there was re-entry. The Gators in Gainesville we used to go watch the game.
Yeah.
At halftime, you'd run across the street to the bar, have a drink, and then come back into the game. They stopped that now, probably with good reason. I don't know that you need re-entry for very extenuating circumstances that
Yeah, I remember doing that. I remember doing that at hockey games where there was enough time during intermission to sprint to Taco Bell and eat there instead of paying the arena prices and then make it back for that.
Yeah, give me your Mount Rushmore. Is baseball your favorite sport?
Yeah, I would say it is.
Give me your Mount Rushmore of baseball. It doesn't have to be the four that you think are the best. Maybe your four favorite players.
My four favorite. Well, I mean, Tony Gwynn has to be up there. Being a San Diego guy, Tony Gwynn's definitely there. So probably a little biased there, but I was a huge fan of Greg Maddux for sure, just because of what he was able to do. Greg Maddux was not the most physically gifted guy in the world. He didn't throw 100 miles an hour. He wasn't 6'5", but that guy just knew how to pitch. He was just such a smart guy and such an incredibly competitive guy, really, really consistent. I mean, there weren't too many times he was going to have a bad game. He might not have his best game, but he wasn't going to go out there and give up 6 runs in 2 innings or something like that. So I think for him, man, there's so many guys. Obviously his reputation took a huge hit, but Barry Bonds, I mean, that guy, you're talking about just admiring the guy's game and admiring what he was able to do both physically and just how
I was a Hall of Famer before he ever took anything.
He was, and I mean, that guy was just even in his late 30s, at 40 years old, he was the most feared hitter.
You want all those guys in the Hall?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I understand a lot of the, people being upset about it, but to me, I don't understand why Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Partly I think baseball dropped the ball as far as not having real clear policies, and of course later on they did. But I think also people overestimate the impact of some of that stuff. Should they have been doing it? No. Should they be judged for it? Yeah. Does it take a hit on their career? Absolutely, and hit on reputation. But the idea that you could just take a mediocre player and just pump them full of steroids and then they would just become an all-star. I mean, if it was that simple, everybody in the major leagues would look like an NFL linebacker. It's not. There's so much more to hitting than that. And most of the guys who got suspended or got thrown out were fringe players who were AAA guys trying to hang on. Who was why not take a chance? If it doesn't work out, I'm out of the game anyways. And most of the guys weren't the big stars. And like I said, I'm not defending their use of it or excusing it or justifying it, but I think it gets overemphasized the true impact that it had. And I know it's tough when you're looking at stats and trying to say, well, what would Bonds have been, or what would McGuire have been if they weren't doing that? And so it's tricky, but the Hall of Fame, I don't know. I just don't think.
Well, it makes it. Everyone wants to know if it didn't make an impact, why they do it. It makes an impact. It keeps them healthier, keeps them away from injuries. It gets them that $100 million contract, and then they don't care if you ding them for a year, because they had so many chances and they knew it. It's that's for a whole nother conversation. What's a bucket list for you, sporting event?
Oh man, probably
one you haven't been.
Like a Final Four, probably. Haven't done that yet. So
no, Final Four is great. Final Four, the things that I've been to that I would highly recommend: Final Four and College World Series. Really, really a fun time, even if your team's not playing. Highly recommend it. Final Four will probably come out your way eventually, right? I would think. I don't know.
Right.
We'll get you out of here on the same question we get everyone out of here. You get to pick one person to spend the day with, and they need to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who are you going to pick, and what would you guys like to do? And it doesn't have to be in sports. It could be anyone.
Man, there's probably a lot, but I'd like to hang out with Mark Cuban. I think he'd be an interesting guy to spend the day with and kind of see what he's all about.
Agree. What are you going to do with Cuban?
Man, everything, just business, sports, just kind of the way he approaches life. But I mean, I love those, kind of entrepreneurs that have the sports background as well. So.
Yeah, I don't. I don't agree with everything that Cuban does, but I would love to hang out with him. I actually was at the Super Bowl Fanatics party 2 years ago, and Cuban was there in a Mavericks cut off sleeveless shirt. Just, everyone's all dressed to the nines, and he's walking around. And look, he's Mark Cuban. He could do that. It was. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but
Right.
we're going to put him on the list. We've already made outreach to other people who have made requests, and so we're going to try and do the best we can.
All right.
You never know. You never know.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. Really, I mean it 100% when I say the locker room stuff that you've done is it's been unbelievable. It's gonna be life-changing for some people. So check it out, lockerroomcommunity.com. Tim Claiborne on LinkedIn. Thanks for coming. We look forward to seeing what you got coming up, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Had a good time.
Thanks, Tim.